I'm Erin Wilson, and you are listening to Inside NC Labor, a podcast designed to inform and educate North Carolina citizens on the role that the Department of Labor plays in state government. Hi, I'm Erin Wilson, the Director of Communications here at the North Carolina Department of Labor, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Meredith Watson, and I'm a Public Information Officer here with the North Carolina Department of Labor.
And today on our episode of Inside NC Labor, we have the Legal Affairs team, which consists of Jill Kramer, Sophie Plott, and Carla Rose. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
So, ladies, I would like y'all to introduce yourselves and give us a little bit of background about where you came from, where you went to school, a little bit about your jobs.
Okay, I'm Jill Kramer. I have an undergraduate degree from NC State. I went to NC Central for my law degree. I have a long history of state government. One of my early jobs was with the Department of Labor under former Commissioner Harry Payne. That was from 92 to roughly 95. I was the OSH rulemaking coordinator, so that kind of immersed me in the world of OSHA. I did a long stint in the Attorney General's office, most recently from 2012 to 2017, and I litigated for the Department of Labor. And in 2017, I joined the team here at the Department of Labor as the General Counsel and have been in that position ever since.
And I'm Sophie Plott. I'm Deputy General Counsel with NCDOL. I did my undergrad at UNC Chapel Hill, and I went to law school just down the road at Campbell Law. And my first few years of practice, I was in-house counsel with the State University's legal department, and then I came just a little over a year ago to NCDOL. I've been here ever since.
And then we have Carla Rose, who is our paralegal. She has an extensive background with private legal practice and then the Public Defender's Office. And she joined, I think, in 2015, joined the agency in 2015, and has been with us ever since.
So, to the extent that you're able, what types of legal matters do y'all handle day to day?
Well, as we all know, our agency is a regulatory agency, and we enforce a variety of laws. So our division gets involved with every other division in some means. We serve as the in-house legal team for the commissioner and for the employees. By statute, we cannot litigate any matter. That has to be done by the Attorney General's office, and the North Carolina Department of Justice is statutorily responsible for all litigation. So we work very closely with them. The General Counsel is the service of process agent for the agency, so we receive all legal documents such as subpoenas, either for records or for appearances by any of our employees, court file complaints, petitions, so forth. We also issue what we call administrative subpoenas. Those are when an inspection is being performed and the entity being inspected is not very forthcoming with necessary documents, so we issue an administrative subpoena to obtain the needed documents. And if those documents are not produced, and then there's further legal action that the Attorney General's office will take. We respond to public inquiries frequently. We communicate with the public. We get frequent questions about who's responsible for elevators, such as the agency does not inspect domestic elevators, but people don't quite understand the difference, and we try and explain things like that to them. If there's an issue, it gets escalated to our department if the public is not happy with the response of an investigation or an inspection. We have something called Ask LAD, which is a public portal that the public can ask questions, and on that we don't give legal advice, and Sophie primarily handles that. We advise the commissioner and all the divisions and bureaus on legal issues that may come up. We respond to public records requests for the elevator, EAD division, boiler, administration. We assist public affairs in dealing with responses. We work closely with human resources in relation to personnel investigations. We handle those. I file a monthly employee classification report, and I pull records from the Wage and Hour Division and from the OSH Division, and that is something that's statutorily mandated relating to if an employer classifies their employee as an independent contractor, but they're actually a true employee. So we have to file a monthly report on that. We serve as a liaison between this agency and the OSH Review Commission, and that is a primary part of Carla's responsibilities. We receive the documents from the OSH Review Commission when there's a notice of contest, when it's been docketed at the OSH Review Commission, and these are all cases that are contested when an OSH citation is issued. And Carla sends out all the applicable documents to each necessary party. We send them out to the district supervisor, to the actual compliance officer who did the inspection, management, and when needed, financial services if there's a penalty due and they have to track whether the penalty's been paid. As I said earlier, we coordinate with the Attorney General's office in the labor section. We review and refer any agency litigation to them. The labor section automatically receives the OSH contested cases from the Review Commission, and they are our attorneys in that case for all OSH litigation. We also have wage and hour cases that we litigate. So the Wage and Hour Bureau will send them to us. We'll review it, see that it is a viable case to take to court, and then we refer it to the AG's office for actual litigation. We also have contested cases before the Office of Administrative Hearings. Those relate to when a penalty, generally when a penalty's been issued, and that would be by the Wage and Hour Bureau, the Boiler Bureau, Elevator Amusement Device Bureau. Those contestments for those penalties all go to the Office of Administrative Hearings, and the AG's office represents us there. We file proof of claims when it relates to bankruptcy. That is, again, a primary responsibility of Carla. When an entity has, for example, an OSH penalty and they file bankruptcy, we can file a proof of claim asking for our piece of the pie, so to speak. We respond to and coordinate what we call third-party litigation. That is litigation in which the agency is not a party. It generally occurs when there's been an injury or a fatality at a workplace and there's been an OSH investigation, and pursuant to that injury or fatality, a civil lawsuit is filed in which they're representing the person injured or the estate of the person who is deceased. So frequently third-party litigants are seeking not only a copy of the OSH investigative file, but an unredacted copy of the OSH investigative file. And by statute, under the OSH Act, we are not allowed to provide that. The OSH Act is very specific about the protection of the identity of witnesses and those who provide statements to the investigator during the process of an OSH investigation. So we work very hard to protect the witnesses from identification. Third-party litigation has increased tremendously in the past several years. So, and we each have unique responsibilities. Sophie does, she primarily does she's the ethics liaison, and I'll let her talk about that.
Yeah, so Legal Affairs Division is responsible for making sure that all employees that fall under the State Ethics Act abide by certain legal requirements in that statute and fulfill certain requirements, such as, completing their ethics training education and a refresher for that every 2 years. And then if they're covered, then they have to file an annual statement of economic interest. And that kind of covers the ethics liaison role a little bit. It's unique to kind of state agencies, and so it's one of the unique hats kind of that LAD covers.
Another unique responsibility is records retention. The State Archives has adopted, in 2017 was the first iteration of it, they adopted a federal form of a records retention policy, and that 2017 change was quite dramatic in how they classify records, how long the records have to be kept, and what category our agency records fall into, because the Department of Labor, again, as a regulatory agency, has varying types of files and records. But Carla is our records retention officer. We ensure compliance. She primarily ensures compliance with the State Archives record retention policy. That was, State Archives falls under the NC Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Her title is Chief Records Retention Officer. She fields questions and communicates with our divisions and bureaus on what types of documents they maintain, how long they have to maintain them, according to what's called the functional schedule. As you can imagine, this is especially relevant when any applicable changes occur in administration, as is coming in 2025. And she ensures that the appropriate documentation of the work that the agency does is kept according to the appropriate category in the functional schedule. This is, as I said, very relevant during a change of administration. We've had several training classes, and we coordinate with our agency records liaison at State Archives for this. Another unique thing we do is we make rules. I am the agency's rulemaking coordinator. The North Carolina Administrative Procedures Act, which is found in Chapter 150B, provides the process by which agencies, all state agencies, must adopt rules. And rules are a further means to explain how an agency actually implements and enforces a statute that the agency is required to enforce. The role of rulemaking coordinator means that I'm responsible for the adoption, amendment, and repeal of all agency rules. This includes drafting fiscal notes for any rules that the agency plans to adopt that shows the fiscal impact on those to whom the rules would apply. That includes the public, local municipalities, or other state agencies. We have to publish the fiscal note also. Once we submit any rule into the rulemaking process, we have to hold a public hearing on it. Sometimes they're well attended, sometimes they're not, but all this information is found on the NCDOL public website. We have rules for every bureau and every division within the agency. We address any petitions that the agency receives from the public, and a petition is the means by which a public can ask the agency to adopt a rule. We also work through what is called the periodic review. That is an ongoing statutory requirement that every agency in the state has to review all of its rules every 10 years to determine whether the rules are still relevant, whether they're still needed, and you have to classify them as necessary or unnecessary in the whole process. The periodic review for each set of rules, we're on the first set right now and about halfway through. It takes about 10 to 11 months for the first part, and then we have to go through another readoption, which will take 6 to 10 months for that. So it is a lengthy process. Once the rulemaking process is complete, whether for a petition rule, the periodic review, or any rule that the agency wants to adopt or amend for that matter, it has to go to the Rules Division of OAH for review, and then the rules are submitted to the Rules Review Commission for approval. So that they have the final say. You brought up third-party litigation earlier. As I mentioned, it is litigation where the department's not an actual party to the lawsuit. Another example that I left out earlier was workers' compensation cases. So again, the attorneys are interested in getting the information that is in our investigative file. We also get third-party litigation related to elevator and amusement device inspections, especially when there's been an injury. Some boiler litigation when there's been for example, a boiler explodes or something, and they want to know the history of when it was inspected or if it was listed as a dangerous device or things like that. Whenever we have this kind of situation, we contact all the relevant parties within the agency, and we send out a letter that explains the agency's policies in relation to how and when anyone can appear for a deposition or be part of a court hearing, when they're supposed to issue subpoenas. And this takes a lot of coordination between our agency and the Attorney General's office. And it's the custodian of records. We work closely with PSIM, who is the custodian of OSH records. And it's something we do every day, it seems.
So what do you really not do is more so the question. It sounds like y'all do little bit of everything. And I think it's very interesting and important to have all of you on here to talk about what a legal affairs division does for this department, because I don't think generally the public knows, and I think this is a little bit better understanding for them, for our listeners to know, hey, this is who you can contact if you have questions, but they can also give you a little bit better background on what we do and do not do here at the department.
Right. We try and explain the statute to them without giving them legal advice. It's especially important in the Ask Live questions, and Sophie can add to this, but we refer them because most departments of labor in other states handle different things than we do. Department of Commerce here in North Carolina handles a lot of labor-related statistics and information. For instance, we get a lot of federal subpoenas for that information, and I have to refer them to Commerce. So Commerce and I met and came up with a kind of an info sheet. So I just send it to them now and explains it's not our responsibility, this is Commerce, these are the people you have to contact. So that simplifies this process. We work to try to give people information if they have a concern that's related to the EEOC, if they're alleging they were fired because of a racial-based or gender-based matter. That's a federal issue. A lot of people have issues at work with harassment, and that is sadly an issue that does exist in the workplace, but right now there's no statute and therefore no agency that can address that. If there is a criminal element such that there's been true injury to someone, then you can get the police involved. They can file police charges. So we kind of try to lead people in the right direction, even if it's something we don't handle. So we educate the public a lot, or try to educate the public.
Is there anything else that you ladies want to add before we close our podcast today?
We try and respond to the public as easily and frequently and quickly as possible. So if you have a question about the agency, you need to know something, you are welcome to contact us. We pick up the phone and we try to be helpful as possible.
Well, we appreciate the work that you do, ladies, for this department in your roles, and thank you for coming and joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for tuning in, y'all, and remember, your safety is our priority.